My name is Carl Blythe, and I've already told a couple of you I'm Carl from COERLL. That's all you need to know. We have, I think, some interesting things in store for you. This is going to be a highly interactive, highly collaborative event. You're going to be sharing with each other because that's really the heart and soul about open education. You don't know it, but you are open educators, and we'll tell you what that means. But let me introduce Thomas, who is really the mastermind behind the TELL framework. TELL stands for, what does it stand for? It's an acronym that means Teacher Effectiveness in Language Learning. For language learning, those two L's are always language learning in all of our acronyms. COERLL is the Center for OER and language learning. And we'll tell you about what OER means in just a minute. So let me turn things over to Thomas.
I was going to say good morning, but it's not good morning. It's good afternoon, right? For those of you guys who have been here before, we normally start in the morning, so I'm trying to adjust. Speaking of people who've been here before, who's been here before? Raise your hand. Okay, good. Who's been here all 3 times? Suckers! Raise your hand really high. So look at those people. You have questions? Just ask them. Don't ask me, just ask them. No. And then the everybody else been here for that's good. No, it's going to be great. We've made some changes, but Carl already said it's going to be a highly interactive thing. This is all about collaborating and working together. We thought this year we will give you lots of information to kind of stew over, maybe over a glass of wine tonight at the reception, and then tomorrow you can come in refreshed and really work on all the stuff that we talked about today. Does that make sense, right? So we're starting with a very light half day, some participation from you guys, but tomorrow is the day that you really, really have to work. But one of the cool things about Collab and why we set up the chairs like this is because we want everybody to get to know each other. Because we're not the experts. You guys actually are the experts in the room. We often say the smartest people are the people in the room, right? Or the smartest people is the room, whatever, however the saying goes. So we're going to find out who is in the room because you guys are going to help each other for the next 2 days become more effective language teachers. And to get us started, I have a very simple question. And that is, what does teaching for proficiency mean to you? So if you had to answer that question in 3 words, what does teaching for proficiency mean to you? Unfortunately, the words that you guys used rarely come up in PD, right? Usually when you go to professional development, it's words like this. Because we like to use big words in education, and we like to give lots of titles, and we really live kind of in a buzzword, educational kind of buzzword world, don't we? And sometimes it feels a little bit like
300 calories.
Stop the insanity!
Because that's kind of what it is, right? Anybody remember her? Susan Powter? Big deal in the early 90s. She lost a lot of weight. But really, if you think about it, what has changed? Has anything really changed in language teaching? And that's the question that I keep asking. Because I used to tell people what I do for a living, which is I'm a consultant and I work all across the country with school districts and organizations and trying to get them to understand what teaching for proficiency really means. And every time I told somebody, it was like, I heard that sentence. Oh, yeah, I had 2 years off. And you all can finish that sentence, right? So now I don't tell people anymore because I used to say, well, it's not like that anymore. And then I go in the classroom, it's like, oh, it's exactly like that still. And so not much really has changed. And that's the question, how much has really changed? I'm a second language learner, came from Germany in the summer of 1992. So in about 3 weeks, it will be my 25th anniversary in the United States. Still learn a word every day. Just last week, I learned the word taught. Putting two tables together or something, and they were trying to push together. And it's like, I didn't know that word. It's really interesting. So I always still learn something. But 1992, there was a show on television that was really big. I don't know if you remember the show. They have a really important scene in there about language learning. And just kind of think about, how much have we changed in language learning and language teaching? That was the image we had in American culture of language learning, right? So the question is it any different? Or could you walk into a classroom that looked very much like that? And I'm scared to say, yeah, there's classes just like that because we don't really change it. We just change the words. We change the buzzwords. So this used to be what we used to teach with, right? We had chalkboards, textbooks, and now we're not allowed to say any of those words in because it's like bad teaching. So now instead of chalkboards, we just say whiteboards. And instead of textbook, we say online book. Instead of notebooks, we say laptops. Instead of tests, we say assessments. But nothing has really changed, right? Because maybe classrooms still look like this. So what changes have we really made? And have we really created a generation of kids that can be functional, can sign for their own flowers when somebody sends them to them, right? And that brings up a lot of questions about what we're doing in the classroom. Yeah, because in the past, this is what we see in classrooms, right? We see a lot of people talking, getting kids to learn about the language. They know everything about the language has to offer. We're really focused on isolated skills. Teachers tell me, oh yeah, I do reading on Monday and listening on Tuesday, or oh, I do a 4 skills approach. I try to do all 4 skills every single day. Textbook is the curriculum in many schools still today. Right? Chapters 1 through 6 first semester, and if you don't finish the book, you can't get to level 2 because, oh wow, you don't know the house vocabulary. And when you try to grade the test, you sit down, you try to figure out what they don't know, right? You take out your green pen, because somebody told you in grad school that green is better than red. It's not, it's just as bad. And you take points off, don't you? You kind of go through it and you're like, oh, there's an accent mark missing. I'm a nice teacher. That's a 1/4 point off. And you keep going, oh, misconjugated. I have no idea what you're trying to say here. -2 points. And you give the kids the test back and it's what? 78. Which means absolutely nothing to the kids, of course. And probably ends up in the garbage can. And you were trying to be a nice teacher, put stickers on them, but it still ended up in the garbage can. And you're the only one who can grade, right? Nobody can help you. You're going like, oh my gosh, I have all this grading to do. So this is what's unfortunately still happening in lots of classes. When we're really trying to change it to a world where instead of just learning about the language, we're getting kids to learn how to use the language. Instead of focusing on isolated skills, we're actually using the modes of communication. And by using the modes of communication means I don't just know what they mean, I actually use the modes of communication. Because I know we all pass that quiz, or we can all raise our hand and say, oh, I know the modes of communication, right? We all know the modes? What are the modes? We all know the modes? Yes, we know the modes, Thomas. Of course we do. We're supposed to say yes. What are the modes? Interpretive, interpersonal, presentation. All right, good. So you get that part of the quiz correct. Nice. Now let's do a short answer definition. Real quick, tell your neighbor, what does interpersonal mean? Go. It's not just about 2 people talking or 2 people texting. It's about there has to be an actual exchange of information. If you're sitting at the kitchen table with your spouse, that may or may not be interpersonal. It just may be the 2 of you talking. You have to actually exchange information, which is why role plays are not interpersonal communication. Right? If you ever had interpersonal communication assessment, the kids went like this, because the person forgot their lines, it's not interpersonal. I don't know your lines in an interpersonal scenario. What's presentational? There has to be an audience for it to be true presentational, right? It can be an audience of 1, that's okay, but it's what I'm doing right now, right? Presenting and writing, presenting and speaking. And then the most important one, but then we never really talk about and we always forget about, interpretive is what? It's just understanding the message, right? It's not even understanding word for word, but it's getting the meaning of the message, either spoken or written. Now, do you guys all know, some of you guys know, because if you've seen me before, do the chicken dance or the hand jive for the modes? Hand jive. Yeah, everybody knows what a hand jive is, right? Do you guys know what the hand jive is? Oh, this is good cultural information. But here's the scary, it's so old that lots of Americans don't know anymore what that is, right? Hand jive is from the movie Grease.
Yeah.
I had a whole crowd of teachers the other day. What are you talking about? We've never seen Grease. You see, look at, there's a person, you should find out somebody who can actually do it. You all can do it tonight. All right, everybody get their hands up. Put them right in front of you. And just repeat after me. Interpretive.
Interpretive.
Interpersonal.
Interpersonal.
Presentational.
Presentational. Interpretive. Interpersonal. Presentational. Presentational. Interpretive.
Nice. See? So now you'll never forget. This is from Yo Ozama, who was the National Language Teacher of the Year. He's a Japanese teacher from California about 3 or 4 years ago. But it's a great strategy for you. And you can teach your kids, too. So you don't have to go, are we supposed to talk to each other in this activity? You can just give them the hand signal, right? Now, technically, this was incorrect, isn't it? Anybody catch this? Why is this one incorrect? Yeah, but I can't do that because I don't have hand-eye coordination. I have to think about it. instead of using textbook as a curriculum, actually using thematic unit, authentic resources. Instead of testing to find out what students don't know, find out what students actually can do and celebrate it, because I'm convinced that even the person who told you they had 2 years, they actually learned a whole lot more. It's just, that's not what we focused on when we gave them any kind of feedback. We told them all the things they don't know, as opposed to celebrating all the things that they do know. And instead of just you knowing how to grade, wouldn't it be nice if not only the students knew and understood the criteria, maybe they could actually grade their own stuff? Wouldn't that be cool? Saves you tons of time. And I can tell you, we're beginning to see teachers around the country who are doing this, where kids know what's expected of them, and they can actually fill out the rubric on their own. So if that's something interested in, I know we will definitely talk about that. But to help you with all that is we came up with this idea of why you're hopefully all here, and that's the idea of we needed some kind of framework that kind of summarizes everything that we know about good and effective teaching to help teachers, because unfortunately, there wasn't one place to go. Every time I did a workshop, people were like, well, I don't know this, I don't know this. Brand new teachers. I just had one a month ago in Connecticut, and there was a teacher. She just got her piece of paper that says, you are a language teacher. And she didn't know any of the foundational knowledge that we really require any teacher to know. She didn't know the modes, she didn't know any proficiency level, and she had just gotten her piece of paper. And so it's pretty scary, isn't it? And so that's kind of the reason behind the TELL project, but instead of me talking about it, I just thought I would show you this little video. It's certainly been the best or the most thrilling professional joyride of my life, because there's some real realities happening right now. Until we had this recent presidential brouhaha, you guys were like public enemy #1, right, in this country? Teachers? Every time you open a magazine, every time you turn on television, it was like, you guys were single-handedly responsible for the downfall of America. Because you don't know what you're doing, and the kids are terrible, and it's all your fault, pretty much, right? And then they thought, oh, we know how to fix this. We'll just come up with new evaluation systems. That will put those teachers in the right place. And so all around the country, we have these new evaluation systems, don't we? And we can argue how effective they are and how they aren't. But they finally brought some attention, and that's the idea that it's not enough what the teacher knows, but what the teacher does in the classroom, right? It's not enough to know about the modes of communication, not enough to know about proficiency, but it's what you're actually doing in the classroom that matters. I'm going to show you this video. It's just a short snippet of a class. It's a first-year Spanish class, middle school. And what I'd like you to do is rate it. If you've been here before, don't play this game. Just pretend like you've never seen this before. Rate it on its effectiveness on a scale of 1 to 5. If you think it's the most effective video you've ever seen, rate it a 5. If you think it's not so good, 1 or anywhere in between. Okay?
Si ustedes corren en el maratón, ¿necesitan azúcar o pasta?
Pasta.
Pasta, gracias, ese, correcto. Ahora, este grupo aquí de frutas y verduras. Frutas y verduras. ¿Por qué son buenas las frutas y las verduras? ¿Qué nos dan? ¿Proteínas o vitaminas?
Vitaminas.
Vitaminas, gracias. Las vitaminas son necesarias para nosotros también. Vitaminas. ¿Por qué necesitamos proteína? Juanita?
Los músculos.
Los músculos, correcto, muy bien. Y también para...
El esqueleto.
El esqueleto. ¿Qué nos da la comida de McDonald's, por ejemplo? ¿Qué hay? Bueno, vamos a analizar lo que hay en las comidas de McDonald's. ¿Cuál tiene más carbohidratos, el Big Mac o el filete de pescado? Señorita.
El Big Mac.
Un Big Mac. Eso parece bueno, ¿verdad? Más carbohidratos, más calorías, más energía, ¿verdad? Come un Big Mac.
No.
¿Por qué no?
Mucho sodio. Y grasa.
Y grasa, es verdad. La grasa es importante para nosotros.
No. Sí.
Sí, en pequeñas o grandes cantidades. Pequeñas cantidades. Entonces, ¿son muchos o pocos gramos? Muchos. Vamos a comparar con un McPollo. Hay, Miguel.
21,9.
21,9. Y con un filete de pescado.
23,3.
Perfecto, muy bien. ¿Dónde está la grasa en un Big Mac? ¿Dónde está la grasa? Sí.
En la hamburguesa.
En la hamburguesa, porque la hamburguesa es carne roja o carne blanca.
Roja.
Roja, correcto. ¿Cómo preparan en McDonald's el pescado? ¿Cómo preparan?
Frito.
Frito. ¿Y Coca-Cola tiene grasa? No. No hay grasa en Coca-Cola, entonces la Coca-Cola es perfecta, ¿verdad? No. No. Ah, ¿por qué no? ¿Qué no tiene? Sí.
Tiene mucho azúcar.
Tiene mucho azúcar, correcto. ¿Y el azúcar simple o el azúcar complicado, complejo? ¿Cuál es?
Azúcar simple.
Azúcar simple. ¿Y dónde está?
What do you think? 1 through 5. How effective would you rate this class? We have people in this room who think this is a 1.
Yeah.
And we have people who think it's a 5, and everything in between. Remember how we just talked about there's these new evaluation systems all around the country? This is a problem. If we can't agree what good language teaching looks like, how are other people ever going to give us feedback and help us get better and measure our effectiveness? And if, you know, those people are sitting over there, remember those people who said they were principal, really brave in a group of teachers? How will they know what good language teaching looks like? I asked that question once to a group of principals who were trying to evaluate Chinese immersion kindergarten classes.
Wow.
How do you know what effective language learning looks like in that classroom? And so we really didn't have a tool which kind of brings about the whole purpose for TEL. If we can't agree on that, we have a hard time moving forward, right? And so TEL really came about out of that. There are 3 core principles that you have to know about TEL. It's a framework, and in that framework, we're talking about we have identified some teacher characteristics behaviors that represent the model world language teacher. This is Disney World teaching. Perfect world, perfect children, perfect administrators, you know, the ones that go to PD with you in the summer, perfect parents, money is no object, ain't never gonna happen. But, this brings me up to the next one, if a world language teacher can become the model, if the model teacher is defined, which means you can become that as well. Anybody here like to watch Food Network? Like a lot? Does the food look like that at your house? Yes? We're going to your house tomorrow night. Good. Or anybody like watching HGTV? Does your home look like that? But we keep watching it, don't we? Because when we see what this model could look like, we can work towards becoming the model. And then the last one, which is the most important one and guides everything that TEL does, is that the identified characteristics and behaviors are intended to guide individual teacher growth towards a model. So it's not an evaluation thing. It's designed to help you as a teacher to become better. We're going to talk a lot about your own individual growth. You're going to set your own individual growth goals for these next 2 days. And it's really about you. And so you guys are really in charge. And we're going to talk about that, how you guys can take control, hopefully, over the next 2 days of your own growth. Because I cannot help you be a better teacher. Only you can help yourself be a better teacher. And so it's my job to help facilitate that for you for the next 2 days. At the end of the day, really, the TEL project is 2 things. It's a framework that defines teacher effectiveness, and it's a suite of tools and resources that allows you to advance your own teacher effectiveness. And you're going to get to play and interact with a lot of those tools and kind of get to know that framework a whole lot better. The Collab part in the TEL Collab is the idea that there are no attendees at this event. There's only participants. So this is going to be a different kind of PD. Really, you're going to work a lot. This is not your normal listening to a presenter kind of thing. So there's no attendees, no, only participants. And then you have to, kind of say you have to be in the room where it happens. You have to be here. So all the other people who didn't come, too bad. It's okay. You guys came, which makes you guys the smart people, and you're going to figure these things out. But why are we really here? I don't know what your goal is. Hopefully I'll find out in a minute. But my big goal in everything is that we can do this, that you can facilitate language learning experiences that actually grow student proficiency. And we'll talk about what that means, growing proficiency, and why that is such an important goal. Because I've got some really bad news for you guys. Now, I don't know if it's bad, but it's a reality check. There's a reason why people have that really negative reaction when you tell them that you're a language teacher. They actually all want to learn the language. The Washington Post did a survey a few years back about what the biggest regrets are for most students, for most adults, not getting out of high school. And foreign language was number 1. So they know how valuable, and you've never met anybody who says, well, I don't like foreign languages. Everybody thinks it's important. It's just we don't know how to learn it. We don't know how to do it. Or we think it's too hard, or all the reasons we have in the world. And so we have some interesting realities. So I'm going to share some data for you. This is a district actually in Texas. I will not say which one. But in that district, they like to review all the departments. At the seniors, when they graduate, they get to rank all the departments on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being good, 1 being bad. Well, not so good. And because, we like peer pressure, the local newspaper then publishes the results of all the high schools and all different departments on the front page. It's interesting. I'm not going to show you the numerical skills, but scores. I'm going to show you what the students had to say about their experience in the foreign language department. And just kind of think about how would your students rate their experience in your department. This is what kids had to say. I would give my Spanish class last year 3. The teacher said the class was very distracting, so most of what I learned on my own. I give foreign language classes a 3 because I think that these classes need to be more group interaction and more activity so that the students can learn language with each other. I give her a 3 because she had great ideas and entertained the class with games, but didn't test our knowledge enough with quizzes and etc. 1 to 5. My foreign language experience was pretty sorry. I had teachers that really didn't teach much, just yelled all the time. I'd probably give it maybe a 2, but probably just a 1.36. Hopefully we aren't that teacher that caused that student. I would rate my foreign language experience as a 4 because we had fun in the class and we learned what we needed to learn. I would definitely give it a 5 because the foreign language department is definitely one of the greatest. It's easy to learn with teachers teaching this way. They give you great experience and it's easy. So we're the fun and easy class, right? Overall, foreign language experience was a 2.5. I understand, but can't speak. Teachers didn't provide many speaking opportunities other than required tests. High school was 2. Teachers did too much review and pointless exercises. Junior high was 4 because the teacher knew what she was doing, so an average of 3, I suppose. Two, because the first teacher I had in junior high was great, and I learned so much. But then once I got to high school, my first teacher wasn't nearly as good because she was trying to teach the kids that didn't know anything. So I didn't learn anything new. Then I had Miss So-and-so, and all we did was watch movies. So the next teacher tried to teach us first year stuff. So I've learned the same basic things 3 times, but nothing more. So that's the reality for lots of our kids, right? That's their reality. We have to remember, every time the kids come into our classroom, we create a reality for them what it's like to be a language learner. And they walk away with that thinking this is what language learning is like. And those people, when they leave, eventually they become department heads, principals, mayors, state representatives, senators, dare I say president? So you got to think about this is what kind of messages are we leaving these kids. And at the end of any kind of PD with new teachers, I always told them, forget everything I just talked about for the last 2 weeks. I only have one thing I'm going to hold you accountable for as a new teacher, and it's actually true for all teachers. That your kids leave your class loving learning another language, right? And everything you do should be able to get kids to that point. And that kind of should be a mindset and everything, because think about what those messages are from those kids. They think often it's hard and it's not really getting them any kind of results, which then 10 years from now they'll tell somebody else on the plane that they had 2 years of French and they can't say anything. So that's the part that we got to change. We could talk a lot about what the problem is. I have a few ideas. I got a couple of questions even about that. Think about the answer in your head. Don't tell me out loud. Just kind of think about that question. What would be your answer? Is communication the primary focus in your teaching? Everybody has the answer in their head? Here's my follow-up question. Do you want learners to communicate in the target language? Is everything you're doing in class getting kids to do that? And by everything, I mean everything. Do you want learners to get a career using the target language? Because that's what we keep telling everybody, right? You got to take 2 years of German, you're going to get a better job. Oh, really? You think they're going to hire little Michael with his like 2 years of German and being a novice mid student or something like that? Because that's the lie that we've been telling the kids, right? Do you want to really focus on literacy as part of learning? Does any of us actually know what that means? How many of us have actually done literacy training? And then this one, if I called your kids, do your grades reflect what students can do in the target language? If I called your kids, what would they say? Would they say participation, homework, tests, quizzes? Because whatever the answer to that question is means it's what they're valuing in your class, right? It's what you're valuing in your class. So all those little messages that we send to kids change their language story and make them into believers of whatever it is that we want them to believe. And it should be that learning a language is really, really easy and really needed in 2017, right? So we got to change that. In order to do that, we always want to talk about this word. And if you've been around for world language professional development in the last 30 years, you've heard this word. But do we know what it really means? I won't put the administrators on the spot. I mean, I would love to. But here's what I'd like you to do. Come up with a definition of that word in a way that an administrator can understand, in a way that a student can understand, in a way that a parent can understand. Because for everybody outside of the language world, proficiency means something very, very different, right? Than it does in a language classroom. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. Come up with a definition. What does proficiency really mean? And remember, this is a no buzzword kind of thing. So don't give me an engaging student-centered classroom, none of that stuff. What does it really mean? Proficiency. Real words. Real words. No teacher words allowed. Okay, so interesting. Lots of words. It's hard to come up with simple words, isn't it? And hopefully in your conversation you guys used words like unrehearsed, real life. Maybe you talked about the different levels, the ability to function. Maybe you talked about native speaker, the idea of that there are actual, that it's not just an idea, but there are criteria to describe language learning. If we look at the actual definition from ACTFL, it means proficiency is the ability to use language in real-world situations in a spontaneous interaction in non-rehearsed context and in a manner acceptable and appropriate to native speakers of the language. That's not as nice. We wouldn't give it to the kids, but. So keywords there being, of course, real-world, spontaneous, non-rehearsed. Excellent. Nice. Good. So this is what language learning really should be about, right? And everything that we're doing should help us get ready for it. And then we know there's different levels and different criteria, and maybe at some point in your career you've seen this little thing, right? But we don't really know what it means. It's just on a poster that I was supposed to hang up because my coordinator told me to. Or maybe when I was student teaching, I had to check off the boxes in my lesson plan, but I don't really know what that means. This may be the most important thing that you have to know as a language teacher. We're going to have lots of fun, interesting conversation, but if you don't know what this smells like, sounds like, looks like, feels like, everything else doesn't really matter, right? Because this is the end. This is the end goal. Is anybody here OPI certified? One person? Nice. Anybody done OPI training? A couple more. Great. So it's really expensive training, but it will probably be the best professional development you ever do. If you ever have an opportunity to do it, I highly recommend it. ACTFL provides it usually at the convention and a couple of times in the summer. It's cheaper for you to bring the trainer to you than you to go to a trainer. That's my recommendation. If you have a coordinator or if you have a supervisor or a department chair or principal, have them bring them to you because it's much more economical that way than you going. But it's the best training of your life because you'll feel like a real bad language teacher afterwards. I did. It's like, what do you mean? I didn't know any of this stuff. How could I possibly be teaching? Because you're going to get an in-depth understanding of the proficiency level like you've never had before, and it's truly going to change the way you think about teaching. Let me provide you one for free for like 10 minutes. All right. OPI stands for what, by the way, people who've gone? The interview. Good. So this really, it's an industry standard for us at this point, right? It truly is. It's an industry standard, it's a certification, and people use it all around the world to prove their language abilities. But I want to show you a snippet of an OPI in English so we can all understand it. So these are English language learners, okay? And we're doing this just to kind of have a foundation before I let you guys loose tomorrow about what this is really all about. So we're going to listen to it. It's in English. I want you to take notes. Basically, make it like a cheat chart, 2 columns. You can use a 20th century device or a 21st century device. I don't really care. However you like to take notes. But basically, figure out 2 charts, 2 columns, and then 1, write down everything this person is talking about. So what are the topics? What's the stuff that she's talking about? And on the other side is how well is she talking about all this stuff that you have in the left-hand column. So on the left, everything this person is talking about. And on the right, how well is this person talking about all that stuff. All right, let's put her out of her misery since her daughter broke her back and her knee. So obviously it goes on a lot longer. We don't have time. It's about a 30-minute interview normally. But what are some of the things that Leonor talked about? What did she talk about? Where she lives, what she does, her family, her daily schedule, what she likes. Yeah, okay, good. So she tried a little bit, yeah. So how did she talk about that stuff? She answered lots of yes and no questions, okay. Very few shorthand, mostly phrases, yeah. She just made up all the answers right there on the spot? No. She knew all those answers, didn't she? She had all those answers memorized. It's just she was waiting for the right question, wasn't she? Because when the person asked finally the right question the way she had learned it, she knew the answer. Yeah, and this is a pretty good indication of the novice level, right? A friend of a friend said that novices are answers looking for questions. Because that's what they are. They have their little answers in their head. And if you ask them the right question, boy, do they know the answer, don't they? But if a substitute teacher comes in and asks them a different way, they know nothing. So that's a great, yeah. So they answer questions, mostly memorized, words, phrases, short sentences, very typical. And yeah, she can really only answer questions. Now I have a question. If we send Leonor to our favorite food truck somewhere downtown Austin to pick us something up, will we see her again? I mean, she might come with a police officer who can bring her home if you gave her this address. I don't know. But she doesn't really have survival language just yet, right? You don't want to take her on a study abroad trip just yet. That's the one you have to follow along with the entire time, right? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to show you one more. The task is going to be the same. Write down what this person is talking about and how well this person is talking about it. So, what did Guadalupe talk about? Same things? Where she lives, her family, what she does. Interesting. She didn't talk about it in the same way, though, did she? How did she talk about it? Details. There's narrative. Full sentences with connectors. Yeah. She what? She could understand more? Mm-hmm. Interesting. So that means the what has nothing to do with how well we talk, do we? The topics, dare say the chapters of the book, have nothing to do with helping our kids actually get to be any better speakers. They could talk about the exact same stuff. So that's the first thing you've got to remember. Topics really have nothing to do with any of this stuff. Yet in most language departments all over the country, we argue over what? The content, the topics, the vocabulary word. We must know all these words. But it really doesn't help our kids move up on that scale that we looked at. So yeah, so topics don't really matter. It's how well we talk about it. So are all your kids proficient? Yes. All of your kids are proficient. You should march into your principal's office tomorrow. No, not tomorrow, but on whatever, Thursday, or when you go back to school and say, hey, guess what? 100% of the world language students in this school are proficient. Show me any other department that can claim that. It depends what level they are proficient, right? And novice is not necessarily a bad thing, but all of our kids are indeed proficient. They're just somewhere on this pyramid. Now, where do you think most kids are in America? After, say, 1 year of learning a language. Novice high? Novice mid? Oh, novice low? Depends on... and doing some research on a proficiency exam, computer adaptive, nationwide, tens of thousands of kids, we found that most kids after 1 year of language study are indeed at novice high. Because level 1 is so much fun, isn't it? I love teaching level 1 because they all start at 0, they're all excited, they're little parakeets, they repeat everything that you want them to say. Level 1 is fun, isn't it? They all want to learn, they just soak it up. So yeah, we can get them through novice pretty quickly. Now, where do you think kids are after 2 years? Oh, and by the way, there's no difference between character-based languages and European-based languages. 2 years of language study. Where do you think they are? Intermediate low, novice high. Some people are really depressing me. Yeah. It's true, after 2 years, they're at novice high. What about 3 years? Most states have 2 years requirements, right? So usually level 3 means I'm special. I'm doing extra. I'm going beyond the requirement because I like this teacher. Where do your kids are after 3 years? Intermediate low? Novice high? No, they gotta get better, right? Have to. Tens of thousands of kids, computer adaptive, that's Proficiency-based all around the country. After 3 years, kids are at novice high. What about level 4? You know those kids that come to 0 hour or come to every office hour, who are like the director or the president of the Spanish club. What about those kids? 4 years, come on. They've been with you. They love you. They're going abroad with you. No guesses? Intermediate low? Well, there's some good news. We do see some traction finally. About half the kids are intermediate low, half the kids are at novice high. It's pretty bad, isn't it? Here's why it's really bad. So that chart, that's ACTFL chart. That's not the only chart. There's other, that one's actually fairly young. The Europeans have a completely different chart, right? Are you guys familiar with the European system of A1, A2, B1, B2? So they have their own framework. Anybody know what novice is on the European chart? It's not even included. Do you know what the European call novice? Non-functional language. It's so bad, we don't even want to give it a name. The federal government also has a different scale. If you're working for the State Department, NSA, CIA, if you work anywhere in the armed forces and you're trying to get the officer rank, you've got to take a language test. So they have a scale that's like 60 years old. It's numerical. It goes from 0 all the way to double digits. Novice high is 0 plus. So as a country, after 4 years of language study, we are graduating non-functioning 0 pluses. That's why people say they had 2 years of language study and they can't say anything, right? So this is what we have to change. And whatever we're going to talk about for the next 2 days, I hope will be a motivation that we'll talk about how can we change that we don't graduate non-functioning 0 pluses, but actually students who can use the language. Because that intermediate level is beautiful. Most of our everyday conversation happens at the intermediate level in your own native language. When you're sitting at home at dinner, you're saying, hey, how was your day? Did you take out the garbage? What are we doing this weekend? Sit down, go to your room. I don't want to watch this show. All those things happen at the intermediate level. So that's a great level for kids to be at. It's the first time that kids can actually create with the language. This is where we want kids to be. But that requires us to do lots of things. And we're going to talk about what that means. Or you guys, well, I'm not going to talk about it. You guys hopefully will talk about what that means. Last couple of slides to kind of summarize everything. These are from my friend Greg Duncan, just to kind of give you a big summary of what that means. So this is what novices can do. They can respond to questions using words, list of words, memorized phrases, maybe a short sentence. Intermediates, they can participate in simple, direct conversations. They can ask and answer questions, which is fantastic. They can create with the language. And by create, we don't mean writing poetry, but that means they know a little bit of this, and a little bit of that, and they can put together a sentence, and sometimes it's right, and sometimes not, but they don't really care. It just sounds right. And they use sentences, strings of sentences, and connector words. Which is why if you don't have a connector word order wall yet, shame on you. Do it tomorrow while you're here. You can do one together. In French, Spanish, ASL, Japanese, Turkish. In advanced, which we didn't really watch anything, but basically those people can do way more. They can talk about concrete factual topics. They can narrate, describe in the past, present, and future in all 3 time forms. Notice this is the first time that the proficiency guidance even talk about all 3 time forms. When do language teachers start talking about all 3 time forms? At the very latest by level 2, right? Because, oh my gosh, this is the last class these kids will ever take. If they don't know subjunctive, they'll hate Spanish. Maybe they hate Spanish because you're trying to teach them the subjunctive while you're in level 2. It's an advanced level skill. Kids are not, they don't need it yet. You've got to let them go through that pyramid. We can't jump around in that pyramid. You actually have to, there's a reason why it exists. They communicate in paragraph length. When you take kids study abroad, and you go in like the fountain square and say, all right, this is the time where you have 90 minutes of free time, right? I'm going to be right here at this fountain. In 90 minutes, you got to be back. Which kind of kids do you trust to go away? Intermediates, right? Because they're going to come back. They have survival language. Novices probably want to stick with you. This is what it's all about, right? We're trying to get kids, well, maybe not advanced. We're trying to get kids to this. This is what we want trying to get kids to do. By the way, most teachers, anybody know what teachers are, proficiency-wise? So most states require advanced low for teacher certification. And there was a study done in the Foreign Language Annals about, I don't know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And we're getting advanced low in Chinese, in French, in German, in Japanese, in Latin. We're not getting advanced low in Spanish. We're only getting the immediate high advanced low kind of thing. But it makes sense, right? Because there's so many more people. And if you just go down and say, hey, I have a minor in Spanish, come on down, you can teach Spanish. So just kind of think about what our expectations are for our kids, right? This is what it's all about. Having a realistic, authentic expectation for our kids and how to get there. So this is the content part of Collab. We want to talk about how can we facilitate those language learning experiences to advanced student proficiency. And now I am going to invite my friend Carl to come up and talk about how we're going to actually do that. A process that is pretty amazing and doesn't cost anything.
So let me start off. As I mentioned, my name is Carl from COERLL. Keep repeating that so you got that. And I really love our acronym. So let me start off with this. We're the center of something. What are we? The center? I know, it's a mouthful, right? So people say, COERLL, Carl. You named it after yourself, right? So it's an acronym in an acronym. Ooh. So OER is an acronym. It stands for Open Educational Resources, which can be anything that you use to teach with. I'll specify that a little bit more. And then, of course, what we're really about is language learning. So we produce materials for language learning. That's what we are. We're a center that produces materials for language learning. We are one of 16 National Foreign Language Resource Centers. They are on the East Coast all the way to the West Coast, and including Hawaii. Our money comes from the Department of Education, and we are, of course, located right here on the campus, UT Austin. That's why we're holding it here. We're hosting the Collab here at UT. We are the only Department of Education center, and there are hundreds of them, that focus exclusively on this concept of open education. So there are lots and hundreds of National Resource Centers and Foreign Language Resource Centers, but we do all that stuff through the lens of open education. So let me start off with a crisis. You've got to have a problem to solve. And the problem is, in higher education, this is from last year from the Congressional Budget Office, this number, $1,300. That's how much the average American college student pays for textbooks, for pedagogical materials. Here at UT, it's well above that. So we're talking about the average. So at the end of 4 years, your BA in Spanish or French or whatever it is, you could be spending over $5,000 in materials. That's a lot of money. And we now are finding out from surveys that people are actually choosing courses based on how cheap or how expensive the textbook is. We also have data that shows that people are being shut out of education because of, obviously, the rise in tuition, but also $5,000, that's a lot of money for a family that may not make a lot of money. They've sent their kid to college. They're the first one in their family to go to school. They're excited about this, and then suddenly they realize $1,300 for textbooks? At the secondary education level, things are really bad too. 2008, when the big recession hit, states all across the nation started cutting. They made deep cuts to education. And teachers screamed, because when you cut teacher salaries, they're people, they scream. Administrators scream. Textbooks, they don't make a lot of noise. They slashed budgets, and I just give the example of North Carolina because I have a sister who's a theater arts teacher. Since that time, they cut 50% of the state budget, and it hasn't come back. That's a decade ago now. So now, what is the situation in her classrooms? Kids don't have materials. And of course, here in Texas and a lot of other schools, a lot of other districts and states, they're saying, well, go to the internet. We don't have the money, we don't have textbooks, go find them. So that's where open education is coming in. So let me show you this real quick video that summarizes the concept of open education. So the one thing that you should understand is open education is an international movement. It's not just here in Texas, it's not here in the United States. This is an international grassroots movement of educators, people like you.
Education is vital. It enriches our lives, sustains our communities, and helps us grow into the future. At least, that's the idea. Truth is, education as we know it is failing millions around the world. Take Tando, for example. He's a bright kid with big dreams, but the education he's getting is holding him back. You see, Tando's school can't afford the latest learning materials, so he has to work with textbooks that are completely outdated. To make matters worse, Tando's teacher is also left using outdated information, often without even realizing it. And even if he manages to overcome this and gets into college, the cost of all the lessons, books, and notes he needs will land Tando in a pile of debt. It's not just Tando. This situation is being replayed in schools and colleges all around the world. So much for education for all. So how can we fix things? The answer lies in open education. Open education is a global movement that aims to bring quality education to teachers and students everywhere. The basic idea is to put top-notch learning materials on the web that anyone can access for free. You see, unlike textbooks, open ed resources can always be revised, so they're never out of date. Teachers are given free license to adapt them and improve them, giving students exactly what they need to achieve their dreams. As all open ed resources are free to share, schools are no longer limited by where they are or how much money they have. And if you think open education doesn't make the grade, think again. Open ed resources are being created by the world's most respected institutions and scholars. From the highest branches of government right down to grassroots level, open education is changing lives. Visit creativecommons.org/education to learn more.
So I mentioned the fact that this is an international movement, and I should really say it's a DIY movement because there are all these kinds of problems. The main idea is that education is a social system, and it starts to kind of close down over time, shutting people out, either because people don't have enough money to be part of the system, or they don't have access to the internet. There are lots of different reasons why social systems start to shut down. So the metaphor here is open. We want to open it up and let other people in to play along with us. So at the language resource centers, again, the money comes from the Department of Education. There's 16 of us. We all have the same mission, and that is to improve the teaching and learning of foreign languages. They actually use, I like this, the bureaucrats talk about it in terms of capacity, the national capacity for foreign languages. Okay, fine. We do this, we do the same thing, but we do it through the lens of open education. We produce open educational resources. So let me define what it means. The term, if you look it up, of course, nowadays you go to Wikipedia to find everything. Collective term that refers to forms of education in which knowledge, ideas, important aspects of teaching methodology or infrastructure are shared freely over the internet. The word freely is ambiguous. It can mean for free, you don't pay for it, or it can mean openly in the sense of a right. We want to share it with everybody. It's free speech. Now, this is a definition that I really like. This is from a guy named Rich Beranek. He is a computer science professor at Rice University in Houston. And he's also a big name in the open education movement, and he defines it this way. The open education movement, so it's a movement, is based on a set of intuitions shared by a remarkably wide range of academics or educators. That knowledge should be free and open to use and reuse. Okay, so these are definitely values. We believe that everybody should be educated and have access to education. That collaboration should be easier, not harder, and this is called the Collab. We want you to collaborate. That people should receive credit and kudos for contributing to education and research. We're not asking you to contribute to this mission and not get credit, not at all. We want to build an infrastructure where people get credit and recognition for what they do. And that concepts and ideas are linked in unusual and surprising ways and not the simple linear forms in today's textbooks. Everybody agrees with that, right? Okay, so this sounds pretty good. There are recurrent metaphors for what we do as educators. It's kind of interesting to study this kind of culturally. What are the different cultural metaphors for educators? But I know the gift metaphor is a prevalent one. I want to give my students the gift of knowledge, right? Whether they open that gift, I don't know. But anyhow, I'm trying to give it away. There's another gift, there's another metaphor, and this comes right from the Collab's materials, or the TEL framework materials, and that, of course, is planting the seed and watering the seed. Envision, plan, implement, collect, and I believe that spells EPIC on the back of your program. You have an EPIC growth plan. This is all about your growth. So professional development as the metaphor, planting a seed. This is the metaphor I actually like the best. And that is, of course, firing the imagination or lighting a fire. And the reason I like it is because in these other metaphors, you're giving something away and you're empty-handed. This metaphor, of course, means that I take my candle and I light somebody else's candle, but I still have the knowledge. I can give my knowledge to somebody else and I retain my knowledge. That's a metaphor that I think what we're trying to do for open education. Everybody here has great ideas. You can share those ideas and your knowledge freely. They can turn around and be shared and continued. Okay? That's a metaphor, though. We need to make that work in reality, and so it needs an infrastructure. And that's what we're going to do with the TEL Collab, is give you a better sense of how to implement some of these kinds of grandiose ideas in your classroom and in your practice. So what is the relationship for the TEL Collab or even the TEL framework in open education? Well, let me go back about 5 years ago. I was listening to Thomas give a talk. I believe it was at ACTFL. And he was talking about a group of teachers that were coming together all across the United States trying to come up with this idea, this framework, as he was calling it, for teacher effectiveness. And the reason I liked it so much, and the reason why I thought, well, this is open education, was it's a complete do-it-yourself project. There are lots of methods and frameworks out there written by an expert who doesn't, and that expert never teaches in your classrooms, right? So this was in the discourse of teachers. It was exactly how teachers talk about their own lives, their own classrooms. And I thought, I like this. This is open education. So OER as an acronym, it was actually coined in 2002 at a UNESCO meeting. And it simply means that any educational material, including the TEL framework, anything, that you can use freely for anyone to use, typically, and this is the important part, involving permission to remix, improve, and redistribute. Okay? You all are going to create OER, and we'll be able to share those with the world. We produced our own little videos to talk more in depth about OER.
Traditional language textbooks are limiting. With no way to customize them, teachers can feel stuck. We're here to tell you about open educational resources. An OER is any material shared by its creator that has a Creative Commons or other open license and is available at low to no cost. While traditional textbooks have a copyright, preventing you from making copies or modifications, OERs allow you to remix, revise, and reuse materials, creatively adapting your resources and sharing them with language teachers and classrooms all over the world. Come, explore this new pedagogical landscape and open up your resources and your classroom.
So, types of OER, open textbooks. This looks like a textbook. This is a textbook, but this also exists as a digital file. Anybody, it's a 300-page French textbook, okay? This is a German. This is a heavy word. It's much heavier. It's German, right? So, okay. And Brazilian Portuguese. So we produce materials that you can access online. I'm going to show you some in just a minute. And you can use these for free in your classrooms. That's the idea. But not only textbooks, that comes to mind, but entire courses. So those are huge, but then we also go very granular. Lesson plans, quizzes. You produce materials all the time in your classes, right? The problem is they're locked down and shut down. You need some kind of infrastructure for sharing. Okay, so I want you to think about what you actually produce as something that is of great value to somebody else in the educational ecosystem. That quiz you just made, somebody else would really benefit from that. Another way to think about OER and open is that we want to have people have free access, which means we're putting it online, no passwords, no fees. Okay? What Thomas was talking about, OPI. Yeah, OPI is great, but it costs a lot of money. So we're in a battle with ACTFL. We're trying to talk about what's the point of foreign language education and how to open things up. And the 4R, what I'm calling the 4 Rs, are really important for that. We want you to be able to copy whatever it is we make and reuse it. Everybody here has violated that copyright law, right? Because teachers are terrible about this. They say, oh, that's so cool, I want to use that in my classroom. They make a copy of it, violation. No good, okay? And of course, you make a copy of it because you want to pass it out. It's not just one copy for yourself, but you have 30 kids in your class, you make 30 copies. That's another violation of copyright. And then our idea is to open it up completely so that you could actually go in. If it's digital, you could revise it, you could adapt it, you could take the names of the people in the activity and put the names of your students in there. That would be kind of cool. That's easy to do. You could remix it, combine it with others, and on and on and on. That's our vision. That's what we're doing. So it all really comes down to copyright, the C in the circle. And in English textbooks and in the English-speaking world, it's usually followed by these 3 words, all rights reserved, which is not open. So it's plural. It's a plural concept. There are multiple rights to copyright. I want you to think of this in terms of the 2 meanings. We want it to be free in the sense of gratis, so people don't have to spend money, but also free in this idea of free speech. So it's a right that people have. So I'm going to say copyright, let's just call it your right to copy. Go ahead. We know that you do it anyhow. I'm going to give you the right to copy that original work, but and then distribute it as much as you want to. Hit the share button, send it out to the world, to your Facebook or Instagram or whatever account you use. I'll give you the right to make derivatives. Go ahead and change the original. And then the right to even sell the work. If you want to make a profit, go ahead. Okay, good luck with that. So that's pretty scary. That's a totally open world, right? This is all, believe it or not, legal. There are, like the C in the circle is one universe. We have an alternate universe called 2 C's in the circle, which stands for Creative Commons, which is a legal team, people who are scholars in copyright law that have devised copyright laws and open licenses, and they're holding up in court. They're working all over the world because copyright is an international. It's complicated because the rights are different in different countries. So you'll start to see CC, and by the way, you probably noticed all of my slides carry this little open copyright. It's an icon, CC, and something there. I don't know what that is, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. Okay, so the whole point is now I'm playing the game of open education with you. I'm going to share my slides with you. What is an OER? Anything I use for educational purposes, including a PowerPoint, right? So here are the icons. All of these are CC licenses, and they've made it really simple. You don't have to be a lawyer anymore. Attribution. Every single CC license, everything we do carries attribution. Attribution means you just point back to the person who originated the work, whether it's somebody's lesson plan. You just gave me a lesson plan. It's terrific. I like it, but I want to change it just a little bit. I want to take her lesson plan and create a mashup. Half of yours and half of yours. So what I do is create the third, a derivative of yours and yours, but I point back to you. I say your name, and I say your name, and I say thank you. Okay? That's attribution. Every single license in open education in the CC world will carry attribution because as educators, we need to practice sharing and giving credit where credit is due. No derivative works. You can say, I don't want this, you can't change my lesson plan. Okay, Marcus gave me the lesson plan, but his lesson plan carries a license that has that equal sign, which means you can use it, but the way you use it has to equal the way I use it. You can't change it. No derivatives. Share alike really should mean a license alike. So whatever license it has on there, if it's got that symbol, I have to use the same license. In other words, Marcus tells me, look, I don't want you to make derivatives, and you can't use this non-commercially, right? Don't make any money off of it. And he puts this kind of recycle button icon there, and he says, and you've got to share it just like I'm doing, so under these conditions. So I have to use the license that he chose. CC licenses are pretty simple to read. So this, my slide, if you want to use this PowerPoint, what am I telling you? I can say, go, it's open, but with one condition. Please give me attribution, okay? So somewhere in there you say Carl Blythe or COERLL or whatever, okay? That's all. You can take this slide and try to sell it. I don't know whether you try to do that. You can, if you want to, because I'm not telling you non-commercial, share alike, no, just the first one, okay? So you can mix and match. In other words, this is the most open license of all. There are more closed licenses than open. So there are thousands, literally, well, millions of OER that are available for you. The problem is people don't know where to search for them. Everybody write this URL down. Creative Commons has a wonderful website, CC Search, and you can go and find resources that carry these licenses that were made by other educators around the world for you. So this is one place on the internet that has, these are all different search engines. So Flickr, of course, is a search engine to find photographs, right? Google, of course, you're very familiar with. YouTube, if you're searching for videos. There are millions of open videos that you can use. But also be careful because there are also millions of videos that are closed. So we also want to teach you how to play the game of copyright. I'm not up here telling you to violate copyright. I'm telling you, you've got so many resources that are freely, openly available to you, but you need to start looking for the license. And here's the cool thing. Those little licenses, they can be read by teachers, like you. They can be read by lawyers, because we want to make sure that this is legal. They can also be read by search engines. So when you make your lesson plan available and you put a license on there, search engines can find it. So these are all different places on the internet where you can find lots of open content. I just mentioned YouTube, Wikipedia, Flickr, Scribd, etc. But a lot of teachers, so here's an example from Flickr. So I teach French and I'm putting together some kind of a thematic unit on the monuments of Paris. So here in Flickr, you can go up and there's something that says Creative Commons. You select all Creative Commons licenses, and then it gives you it sorts through their database and gives you only open materials to use that you can freely use. And then here, of course, this is the photograph I want to use. Here's Rob Lee. He's the educator or the photographer who took this picture. He entitled it Eiffel Tower at Night. This is the license he chose. Attribution, no derivatives, or use it just like that. So don't Photoshop this, just use this like as it is, okay? That's how easy it is, okay? Again, you can do the same thing for YouTube. So there's a little filter, they call them filters on these different sites, these different databases. Go up and always select Creative Commons. And then, boom, I let go, and I have thousands of videos that are openly licensed for me to play with. Okay, I can go in and edit them and change them. Now, that's great if you want to find open content, just lots of stuff out there to use for your classroom. But what if you want somebody who's already done all this work for you and has an entire program? Okay, well, that's a little bit more difficult. Here are a couple of places. These are large databases of ready-made OER for you. So Merlot, OER Commons, Loro is out of the UK. This is a great place for lesson plans in foreign languages. Really small, granular things you can do. Less commonly taught languages, and of course the NFLRC, or National Foreign Language Resource Center.org. This is all 16 centers have this kind of one database where you can search by language, you can search by proficiency level, you can search on and on and on. Okay? So of course you can go to the Center for Open Educational Resources, our website. We have OER in 18 different languages. Go to the materials right here and look for language learning. Here are the different materials, different languages that we have materials in, from Arabic to Yoruba. I'll just show you kind of the killer one here. Español abierto, so open Spanish. Okay, so these are all lots of mix and match OER that do different things. And it tells you a little bit about the archive itself. So it's an archive of videos that are all authentic speakers, native speakers, or actually the word native is interesting because it has a gamut of a range of proficiencies. A lot of these are heritage. Many people speak mixed language varieties. So when we say Spanish in Texas, whew, the diversity is incredible. And we're trying to represent the diversity of what Spanish is in Texas. So there's not one variety, there are many varieties, including mixed varieties. But anyhow, so you can search by topic, you can search by language featured speakers. Here are all these different videos, on and on and on. I'll just show you.
¿Nos puedes contar historias sobre las tradiciones culturales que celebras en tu familia?
Sí. Pues sé que más bien como en Navidad, siempre nos reunimos con ya sea la familia de mi mamá o de mi papá.
Okay, so this is a native speaker speaking interesting Spanish dialect here, but I won't talk about that. Here we have the transcript. You can turn this into, you can underline things for your students, or you can hide things. You can turn these into close activities. We have hundreds of these, okay? You can download all the videos right to your desktop, and then you could own them. We're trying to give this stuff away. Okay, so this is a huge database. It's searchable by grammar. You can search it for vocabulary. So if you want every example, if por y para, because you're doing that lesson, you can get all 5,000 examples of that in the database and so forth. Okay, it's overwhelming. But here's what I want to show you, the idea of when open education becomes powerful. And that is lesson ideas. So we have teachers just like yourselves who are creating OERs around SpinText. They're creating lessons, and then they send them back to us. We upload them, and we share them with the world. So here is a lesson on comparing two native speakers. I'll just show you a couple. Circling words you hear, generating a quiz, family histories, and on and on. Okay, so different ways that teachers in the field are using this. Now, that's one example of an OER. Now I want to shift my attention to, that's what I said you're going to create. You're going to create an OER. But I want to shift our attention now to something called professional credentialing, because there's another piece to open education that's really important. Have you heard of badges, digital badges? Okay, because that's another part of this. We're going to ask you to create OER in order to get your digital badge. So in the credentialing world, we talk about college transcripts, right? This is about professional development. And so every profession, whether you're a cardiologist or a foreign language teacher, has different kinds of ways of credentialing. We also have something called state education agencies that give out these weird things called CPEs, right? Many of you want to get CPEs for this. Okay, CPEs stand for Continuing Professional Education, right? And you need credits. So they're always plural. We also have personal resumes or your CV when you're out looking for a job. And then, of course, badges, which is the digital open educational equivalent. So what is a badge? It's a digital badge. It's a validated, and I put that word in red there because that's the important part. It's a validated indicator of an accomplishment, a skill, quality, or interest. You've proven to somebody, and you can prove to your employer on your resume that what you say is actually true. Sometimes people put all kinds of things down on resumes. So here's a transcript, kind of. And you know what those are, and you just, well, that's validated, the University of Texas. We say, here's the dean. We give you, you can't see that because it's all pixelated, but GPAs, information, and it has the seal of the registrar of the University of Texas. That's validated. It's not very granular. If you have, you can graduate, unfortunately, and get a BA in Spanish. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have high proficiency in speaking Spanish, right? Okay, then there's these things. This is the Texas Education Agency, and this is continuing professional education. And of course, if you read through all of this, it says it's really basically a seat time requirement, right? They're hours. I've done 3 hours in this seminar. I get 3 hours of credit. I discovered that, and I thought, are you kidding me? Educators accept this as an indication of your continuing professional education? I think this is outrageous. I mean, that's like the lowest bar possible. And when I started giving talks on open education in TEFLA, to state agencies, and to conferences and teaching conferences, and people afterwards would come up to get my autograph, I thought, wow, they really like me. No, they needed me to say, yes, you were in the seat for the hour that I spoke. I didn't know these people. I didn't know whether they were actually awake or not, or whether they had learned anything, or whether they just they'd gotten a cup of coffee and come in and gotten my signature. You can do better than this system, okay? Then, of course, we have the resume, and here's Glenda Andrews, who's applying for a job, experienced foreign language teacher, fluent in French and Spanish. She says all the great things. None of this is validated. There are, unfortunately, no references. That's how we would check if we wanted to hire her and see if she can do all these different kinds of things that she's claiming to do. A validated indicator has a couple of things. It indicates who it was awarded to, who it was awarded by, and what are the criteria for earning this badge. A badge is validated. And finally, most importantly, it gives evidence that you have earned that, you have met that criteria. You can do what you say you can do. So here is an example of a validated badge. And this is, of course, this is made up, but this is Jane Tyler. This looks like something called LinkedIn, which is a way of creating professional networks and showing your professional portfolio online. And look at that, she's now teaching previously at Chicago Public Schools and Austin Independent School District. That's what caught my eye. She got her degree at Texas Tech. You can click on all of those and find out all the information. Her transcripts are uploaded. But then she has this little thing that's a badge. You can click on the badge and you get all the information. And that's validated. That's what we want to aim for in open education. We can help each other do that. So we're going to give you badges. Well, no. You're going to earn badges, okay? And we're going to give you 3 opportunities, 3 choices here. You're going to choose 2 out of the 3 here. A badge for planning, a badge for learning experience, and a badge for performance and feedback. So 2 of those 3. Again, so the earners, that's you. You're going to earn 2 badges, we hope. Each badge is 7 CPEs. So we'll continue to play the game of CPEs because we are stuck with that. And COERLL will issue the badge, and COERLL will display the badge. But once given the badge, you can put it on your, if you've got, I don't know, social media, if you have a profile in other social media accounts, you can show that, and you can take that to your Board of Education, and they'll give you a huge raise. And consumers, all the people to whom you think this might be important, other school districts, employers, and importantly, other teachers. You can search badges. That's the cool thing. You can find out who has the kind of skills that I'm looking for. So you can find somebody's badge and say, I'd like to find out how you got that skill, who taught that to you, what workshop did you go, etc. Okay? The tellcollab.org, that's our website. Tellcollab.org has all of this information. That's what we'll be using for the rest of our unconference. So there are the digital badges right there.